This is so exciting. Hello, Karen, and hello, Johanna Derlega. Oh my goodness. For all of our longtime listeners, not even long time because we only interviewed you maybe like 6, 8 months ago. I actually don't remember when, but thank you so much for coming back and welcome, welcome, welcome back. We're thrilled to have you.
Thank you so much for having me back.
Oh my gosh. I mean, we had to have you back. I feel like it wasn't coercive, isn't the word I want to use, but I feel like during that recording, we were like, this is amazing. You have to come back. So I just thank you so much for agreeing
I
to share
loved the
your wisdom.
experience. It was so wonderful. I felt like I was able to explore all sorts of things that I hadn't put in a cohesive way before. So I was really grateful for both of your incredible, insightful questions.
My gosh.
I don't remember what we talked about now. I know it was amazing, and yet for people who are
Love
listening,
that.
like, wait, where can I find it? I'm like, you know what? I'll tell you, friends. And also, what did we talk about?
We talked.
Grounding.
Yes,
Grounding.
grounding.
Yes. I mean,
Yes.
Grounding through squirrel season.
oh my
Yes.
gosh.
Yes. And the assigning characters to your emotions, the urgency troll,
Yes.
the clogs.
Yes. Yes.
Oh my gosh, that was so powerful. Okay, September 16th, 2024, episode
Oh gosh.
183, Grounding Through Overwhelm.
Mhm.
Yes, that was that. Oh yeah, that was amazing when you assign the yes, that was really, really, that was exciting. That was like a brain expanding conversation for me. So thank you for that.
I felt the same way.
And as I just mentioned, I have been, putting little clips of us of the episodes right on YouTube. So the whole episode, listeners, you can watch the whole episode. We all look fantastic, by the
Yes.
way. You can watch the whole episode, but then as shorts on YouTube, I've been putting little clips and people have been responding really well. And I feel like one of the ones I think that people have really responded to is you talk about following the energy
Yes.
and following the energy also in your relationships with people. Like, how do you know how to whether not necessarily whether to keep somebody in your life, but really being intentional about like, oh, this person lights me up. That's where I should go.
Yes, energy. It's so sometimes it's so hard. I think one of the hardest things in our lives is to know what we need or how we're feeling. The
Oh,
brain really takes over our bodies, right? It wants things to either be okay or not okay or whatever, a lot of inertia. And so sometimes I think energy is an easier way to access how to give
Mhm.
yourself what you need instead of saying, well, I'm sad or I'm mad. Or, I mean, those things are sometimes hard to decipher. But if you just say, oh, I feel depleted or I feel energized, that is kind of an easier way to respond to your body, to what you need.
I love that. It's easier to access sometimes.
Hmm.
It's like the other stuff is like the PhD level sometimes. And
Yeah.
like it's hard to get to that. Like that's yeah, like I've had a situation recently where I'm like, why do I feel this way, but I also can't articulate why I feel this way.
Yes. Exactly. And so you can say, well, does it give me energy? And sometimes, I mean, anger
Mhm.
is energy, right? I mean, anger
Mm-hmm.
is like maybe the most activating emotion we have. There's nothing wrong with that, right? But sometimes you can, if it feels like it's depleting, maybe you need time away to figure that out. Maybe that's what you need. So I just feel like that's an easier way sometimes for me to access giving myself what it needs.
Ah, so calming. And as you know, I find both of your presences infinitely calming. And as well as resonating with YouTube audiences and people, who listen to us on Spotify and Apple. So, Johanna, it sounds like you also resonated with another male listener. I didn't know how that we had many male listeners, to be honest with
I
you.
know.
Same, same. Whoever you are, we really appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thank
Okay.
you.
So after I was on the podcast, and I'd never been on a podcast before, so it was a brand new experience for me. A guy reached out. Oh, I'm so sad. I can't remember. it'll come to me, the name of the organization. He is a ghostwriter, and he listens to the podcast, and he heard me on the podcast and looked up to see if I had written a book, and basically wanted to talk to me about ghostwriting a book for me. And it was truly a universe moment because I started thinking about it, and I've always felt like I had a book in me somewhere. And so I met with someone in his group. He has a firm called Write It Great. That's what it's called, Write It Great.
Oh,
And I spoke to them, and I realized as through this conversation that I wanted to write my own book, and that I didn't need a ghostwriter, and that process would be fulfilling for me. I love process, and all of its challenges and energy and all of it. And so I'm writing a book. So your podcast led to the universe messaging me. And now I'm writing a book.
oh my
So
gosh.
that is kind of an amazing little, I mean, adventure from spending an hour with you both. That's what
That's
happened.
that's so amazing.
Magic.
Magic. Thank you for sharing. That is incredible. Wow. Friends, just hit us up for being a guest on our show because you never know what could happen.
I mean, so okay, where are you? I also love that. So you and your sister both, right, are or did
Yes.
she tap out? Okay, all right. So
Oh,
No,
what is
no.
it?
So
okay, good,
we
good.
decided because I was on your podcast in September. He reached
Yes.
out in October.
Mm.
And one of the things when I talked to this guy Raymond at Write It Great, he mentioned to me because I said, I think I'm going to write this myself. So I don't thank you for your time, but I don't think that I need your services. And he said, well, that sounds great. November is National,
No,
uh, is it
nano
NaNoWriMo? So it's
NaNoWriMo
National
novel
Write
writing
a
month.
Novel Writing Month.
Yes.
So
Oh
I
my
reached out
God.
to my sister, who I'm very close with. I speak to her every day, and she'd written a book in NaNoWriMo like 12 years ago, 15 years ago, longer. And I said, what do you think if she's written two fictions that have
Wow.
not been published? I said, why don't you edit your books? I will write my books. So instead of having a word count goal, why don't we just say we'll write an hour every day? And we
Wow.
did. We wrote an hour
What?
every day. She finished, I'm actually doing the second read through of her second novel, but she basically finished all of the editing. She's reaching out to agents now. And I wrote about 20,000 words. So I didn't,
Damn.
it's
Oh
not there yet, but I wrote 20,000 words.
What? That's so many words. That's
I know.
amazing.
And then
Wait.
she edited it too. And now I'm going through, and it feels a little sloggy right now. I feel like January is slog season, so it feels a little, um, but I'm doing it.
Wow. And what are you willing to share what it's about or
Oh
like
yeah,
the whatever
I
you want to
am.
share? Yes, what is it?
So I am kind of obsessed with this idea of space. And when we give ourselves space and we give others space, what to me it leads to is grace and ease. And I am fascinated with this. I'm a leadership coach, and I'm fascinated with giving ourselves and others space at work, and
Ooh.
how we can bring our authentic selves to work, how we can use space to understand where energy comes from, right? And what energizes us, and to choose.
Mm.
And whether that's choosing how to show up at work or it's leaving a job and starting something different, it doesn't have to be that extreme. But I just felt like this was something that I have a lot of experience with. I've been squished. I think you guys talked about feeling squished, right? That was your word. I've had some people talk about feeling canned, and
Ooh.
and so I've had that experience, and I've had the spacious experience, and so I share some of my experiences in it. I have my yoga teacher training certification. So it's like I have some of my yoga beliefs. I just have I've done a lot of reading. I've done a lot of space work, as I would call it. And so I'm just applying the principles and talking about my own experiences. And then also there's a lot of questions for a reader, right? So that they can explore and they can figure out how they can create space and what it does for them at work.
Wow. That sounds
Right.
incredible.
I know. I want to read it right now. I'm like, oh, I feel like this is the introduction to the audiobook and that you're just going to pick it up and just start reading it to us right now. That's how I feel right now. I'm like, great.
I
Okay, word,
wish.
I'm in.
I
It's
Let's
wish I was
go.
also
done.
that's a pitch. Honestly, Johanna, like
I
that is
know,
a
right?
pitch. Like that's like if an agent heard that one clip, I mean, they probably would be like, "Where can I sign?"
Well, I can only hope. I'm about halfway through, and then my sister, of course, will edit it again, and I'll probably make Karen read it too,
Yes.
and a few other folks.
Yes,
So
please.
awesome. That's so
I'm
exciting.
in.
Seriously, congratulations. That's
Thank
amazing.
you. Thank you.
Wow. Yeah, I mean to link it all back, I'm not sure if you're familiar, already probably are with the Feminist Creative Society every Thursday at 6 p.m. on Zoom Central Time. Karen has
Yes.
Go ahead, Karen.
Yes. So, what is so funny? Oh my gosh. I mean, talk about full circle. Johanna, as I told you during our coaching sessions, Johanna inspired the Feminist Creative Society.
Oh my gosh, I love
I did?
that.
Yes, yes, yes. Wait, so we had one of our first sessions in 2023, and this idea of I forget what Salzburger, your zone of genius, maybe, or it's not a
Oh,
Salzburger thing, but
yes.
right, you were like, here are your
The Big
superpowers.
Leap
Here's
by Gay
your
Hendricks. That's his thing.
yeah,
Yes.
the zone. Right. Oh, I'm reading that very slowly. And you were kind of laying out for me, like, here are your superpowers. Here's your zone of genius. All of these things, and you're a connector and getting people to be creative. And long story short, after that session, it was driving to Alabama for Thanksgiving that I came up with the idea for the Feminist Writer Society, directly inspired by talking to you.
Oh, well, that makes me feel very warm and fuzzy inside. Thank you so much. I'm thrilled.
That is amazing. Oh my gosh, I love that. Are you still writing an hour a day, Johanna?
No, so I mean, this is amazing. But I was in December, but then I went to Paris over Christmas, and then I came
Ooh.
Nice.
back sick, and I have
Oh.
not written since before Christmas. I've looked at it, I've reread it, I've maybe puttered in the document. It's sometimes I find we're going to be probably talking a little bit about intentions today, but sometimes I struggle with my intentions, right? So sometimes I just have to putter. It's like I have to stick my pinky toes in. And so that's what I've been doing the last week or so. I open it, I read it, I change a few things, I edit it a little bit, and I know that it's just that's going to lead me to just getting into the zone because the zone is very nourishing,
Wow.
I
Also,
found.
it kind of sounds like
Yeah.
you're allowing yourself space right now.
Yes, I am. And I did my yoga teacher training certification in 2017, and my studio offered anyone who had done it at my yoga studio previously could be a fellow in this year's
Ooh.
training, which is almost like a teacher's assistant. I never taught yoga. I never taught the asana practice. I incorporated it in a lot of ways in my home and work, and so now I am. That's obviously going to be fodder for the book also. So I was in a little bit of a rush previously, but I don't feel quite
Mm.
as in a rush because I feel like there's so much I'm already learning. I've only done one weekend and I feel like I'm already learning themes that I can bring in. So I'm giving myself a lot of space with the book.
So great. Wow.
Very, oh my gosh, very inspiring.
Thank you.
All right. As you mentioned, yes. So, I mean, our last episode, Katie and I came in with a theme and we never talked about it, but we're not going to do that to you because we have you here very specifically to talk about intentions. This is only our second episode of the year.
Mhm.
And I feel like you had a lot to say about the importance of intentions and just this idea of resetting, I think. So,
Mhm.
for people who have started the year but maybe haven't set intentions or have already gone back on them, like kind of how do you approach it?
First of all, um, I want to say that there's a difference between intentions and resolutions.
Hmm.
So I feel like resolutions are kind of my frenemy. For years, I would make a huge list of resolutions. They were typically through the lens of what society wanted me to be, right? Healthier, thinner, busier, better friend, all the things that, and those things have just escalated with social media and all the things that we should be. I know someone and she used to say, like, let's stop shooting ourselves to death, right? So it's like, or shooting on ourselves. That's how she would say it. And I love that.
I like that too.
It's so good. Um, and, it's not realistic to think that we can make a list of 10 things and do them all. I mean, even at work, when you think about, oh, I'm going to do goal setting, I mean, you do one or two. Like, you can't prioritize, you can't, what is it, boil the ocean. You just can't. So I would say that first and foremost, when I think about intentions, intentions for me are more like heart work rather than kind of like mind, being in your mind and thinking about all the things you should be doing. And so, you know, I so and the heart work is really where are your values? Like, are you living your values? This is work that doesn't happen at the beginning of the year. First of all, it can happen in any moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
It can happen in any breath. Like every breath is a new start. But I also think that it is in a lot of ways really thinking about what your values are and if your focus is on your values. And that takes time and it takes space and it takes consideration and it takes listening. And so I think it doesn't have to necessarily be like a list or it doesn't, but I think that it takes some digestion to think about an intention. But one thing that I have really found and I love to do, and it's not just in January. In fact, I think January is it's as I mentioned, it's like a slog month. It's like
Right.
it's really hard to be motivated in January. And so in a lot of ways, I think of January not as action or activity, but reflection and softness. And so for me, January is really about giving myself ease and sitting and listening to my heart because I don't feel like going out and running. I don't even feel like walking the dogs. There's still snow on the ground from a week ago. So, so what can I do to basically tenderize the wisdom, tenderize the space for the wisdom to grow? And so a lot of it is like I sit down on my mat and I just settle in and I take some breaths and I just touch my heart and I say, what's my intention? And I literally just sit there and things will come to me. And, for me, the last couple of years has just been really about um, accompanying people accompanying me, right? Like the coaching, the consulting, that's what I'm doing. That is right now, that's my intention. And this book is another part of accompaniment. So that would be an example of how to get to something that's not a list of things to do, but making sure that you're vocalizing the values so that you can put your attention in a place.
That's
I know.
amazing. I
Like
mean,
you're blowing my mind right now.
you're blowing my mind, and also like every single one of your sentences is so helpful, actually. There's no filler when you talk. Like it's like there's just that's that is a compliment, Johanna, and that is rare. So I'm just saying that as a filler, I think, because I can't figure out what no, I'm just kidding. I know what I
Oh,
want to say, but I feel so many things. Okay, so thank you for explaining that. One of the things that I love so much about what you're saying is the permission that you're giving people to have a different type of January. So,
mm.
this concept was introduced to me a couple days ago when a friend of mine said, "Oh, my year doesn't start in January. It starts in April when that's when my birthday is." And I was like, "Oh, that's so interesting. It's like we can start the year whenever we want." And she's like, "Yeah, my intention right now is to just rest because the holidays are such it's so much energy. Even if you try really, really hard, I think for most people, if you try really hard to like have an easeful holiday experience, like I don't think ever had an had that achieved. And so like I would like to try this year, but no, I think it's just such a beautiful thing to honor kind of where your body is at in January, which I think for
Mhm.
many of us, myself included, needs I need rest. Like I just need rest. And I think there's so much
Yes.
messaging around like, all right, well, what's going to be the next thing? How is this year going to go? Go, 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 go. And it's like, wait, what about the concept of like that Catherine May book, Wintering, and like all of that. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
it's just
Yes.
it's just so interesting. I think for people who are listening to that thinking like, okay, I love this all, but I'm just not sure what to make my intention. I love the idea that it will come to you, that you don't have to
Mm.
strive to get it. I think that usually for me, my intentions have come in just like a word, like it's not specific. And so,
Yeah.
like, my intention for this year, at least, and I think it probably has for the past several years, been the concept of ease. Like, I want things to be easeful. And if things are like strivey, 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 it's like that's not where I want to put my attention. Like,
Mm-mm.
I'm not saying that I don't work hard. It's just like if something's not right, like I'm not going to contort it Gumby style into the right thing.
Yes.
Do you know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? And so like
Yes.
so that's where I'm at. But I guess I just have a question in terms of like for people who are like, well, I want to set an intention, but I'm not really sure what it is, and I'm afraid I'm going to do the wrong intention. And what if I want to like switch gears? And what do I like? Maybe people aren't that anxious who are listening, and it's just me. But yeah, I would love to
Uh,
know your thoughts on that.
I love that. And I think that, when I first started my coaching practice, I really wanted to call it Lost and Found
Mm,
because I love the idea of breaking and healing, of losing and finding. I mean, that's to me, enlightenment is not a destination. It's the journey of curiosity and touching and losing and breaking and healing and all of those things. And intentions are just a direction in the moment. Anything can change. There's no pressure. And again, to go back to the idea of energy in your body, an intention, if you start embarking and pursuing that intention and it doesn't give you energy, it's probably not the right one because going back to what you were saying, I mean, wintering or January, I mean, we talked before about the squirreling of the fall, right? Harvesting. That's a busy, busy time and it's a frenetic time. That's what nature is giving us. And in January, nature is giving us hibernation. And why fight with something as personal as an intention? Don't fight it. If it doesn't feel right, don't pursue it. Because an intention, I mean, ultimately, what I'm saying is when you sit down and you ask yourself, you're asking yourself to choose. Those choices can change anytime. This is your life. How do you want to live it? And choose the life you want to live, right? And that means you can change your damn mind anytime you want to.
Oh my God. I'm sorry that I just love it so much. Oh my gosh. And there's something Katie said, I can't remember what episode this was, but I think about it all this time. This line, life is strange but long if you're lucky.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I'm trying to think of how to frame this question, Johanna, because I have known you for years now.
Hmm.
I want to point out something about you to people,
Yeah.
which is that you've the yoga certification and the coaching. You are also a money lady.
Oh, yeah, I am a money lady.
You're a money lady, and I hate to say it like that, but like
Yeah.
I feel like I want people to know I met you because you were in revenue,
Yes, totally.
right? We were colleagues. You led revenue. You have been a publisher. Like you are saying these things and also have a sense of financial abundance and
Mm-hmm.
wealth and
Scarcity.
how, right? Oh, I'm scared because nonprofits, right? Like I want to give people that because it's just like, well, easy for her to say she's doing yoga all day and she's right. Like this is also about providing and financial freedom and abundance. Anyway, if you can just speak to that, I
Yeah,
would
I
appreciate it.
I'm yes, and actually that's part of the book, right? Is like merging these two worlds is this idea that you can have an expansive life and you can see abundance and you can achieve it, right? Through a mindset and work in a very busy industries. Media is an industry of existential crisis. There is no worse industry than a bunch of insecure, people who feel entitled to an audience and revenue.
Oof.
And that is what I've worked in my entire adult life, basically. So, it is blending. It's like it's all mindset. That's the coaching is that we can all be in these pressure cooker environments, right? I know, Katie, you're in tech. That's another one, right? Like, whoa. And so working in these pressure cooker environments and still being able to say, I choose perspective. I choose, it's not always in that moment, right? I mean, we can't always help our first instinct, which sometimes is a scarcity mindset or is um, getting irritated or feeling like a victim. Those are all very human emotions. But being able to then step back and say, uh, why am this is not who I'm going to be. I am not going to let this dictate who I am and my value system because I know my values and I can be in a pressure cooker and still adhere to my values. And at some point, if it is too cumbersome, right? Because living is living this way is always the environment is always crunching in on you, right? I mean, people can choose to be a Buddha and live off the grid and or in a commune of people who are like-minded. That's not how most of us live.
Mhm.
Right.
The other way is free flowing with culture, right? And never discerning who you are or what you want to be. And then I think the middle path, the third path, is using your environment to hone and sharpen who you are. That's choosing. That's saying the environment can be whatever it is. And certainly there are times when I'm impacted by my environment, but ultimately I can pull away. That's space. I'm creating space between myself and the environment so that I can remember who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I mean, revenue is a pressure cooker for sure, but I can still be someone who has principles and adhere to my values and choose the paths that I want to take and how I spend my free time or right. So it is, I mean, I think there's personal responsibility in that. And I love personal responsibility because you earn your confidence. You earn where you get to. And there is nothing, I think that feels really good.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's like it's touching on this idea of like, oh, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough whatever scarcity concept in order to set an intention, in order to like that's not going to
Right.
fit into XYZ. And it's like it's interesting because it's like everyone's intention can be so different. And like you
Mhm.
can, like you said, switch it whenever you want and you can always change your mind. Yeah, I guess I wonder, like, what are some challenges, Johanna, that you see with your clients in setting intentions or
Mhm.
like around this concept? Because, just to kind of like have a holistic view around it, like what are some things that you see that, kind of the resistance to this concept or challenges around that?
Yeah, I think that's great. And you named one of them, which is fear, right? Or scarcity. I think that's definitely one. I think another is habit. and habits or obligation, right? Or feelings of obligation, if they exist or not, right? Well, my company's relying on me, or I can't set boundaries because this person, I've always had taken this role with this person, right? I mean, even in families, or it's like you feel stuck. And this goes back to that book that I was talking about, which is called The Big Leap. It's by Gay Hendricks, and it is, I think I have it downstairs, but it is such a great book because it talks about upper limiting. It talks about all the ways that we create um, roadblocks for us to achieve an energetic place, right? A place that gives us energy. A zone of genius, he defines as you give something energy and it gives you energy back. That's your zone of genius. Your zone of excellence is you give something energy, it doesn't give you energy back. You can be great at that thing, but it's not energy bearing. And so I think, yeah, so I think fear, I think obligation, I think habit, I think those are all. And then I think that lack of perspective. I mean, I don't think that people always realize that there is a choice with everything. There
Yeah,
is always a choice. You may not like that choice, but see the choices and you
that's
can
so real.
decide, right? Okay, I've decided not to take this path because I don't like the outcome. But that means, I mean, it's kind of like when you're in a job. My old boss used to say, anytime someone approaches you about a job, do the interview. Just do it because it gives you perspective if you're as happy in your job as you think you are or unhappy in your job as you think you are, right? So I do think perspective is another thing. And that's where coaching comes, that's why I think coaching is popular because the whole point is, well, what about this and what about this? And you're saying you don't have a choice, but what would this look like or what would that look like, right? Is I think that's very important to it's almost like kicking out the cobwebs of all of the places your brain doesn't want to go. Brains like inertia. It is easy, right? That's where we got to tap into the body's wisdom because the body will tell you every time if things are not going well, like nervousness, anxiety, tiredness, all those things because your brain just wants to well, this is the well-trod path. Let's just keep going. And it's like, well, is this what I really want to do? You stop getting to intention. You stop being motivated. Um, and that's a really human place to be, but it's also a place where you haven't really made the choices.
Ooh, oh my gosh, my brain is going in a million directions. And I think one thing that comes up for me as you're describing this also is I love the idea of choice. It helps me get unstuck every time. Being stuck is one of the worst, most triggering, most dysregulating things for me. And so stepping back and being like, I have a choice. I am not painted in this corner, all of the things. And also going down this path of like coaching, as I've learned, I'll get into this later, but coaching, as I've learned, right, is asking powerful questions, right? And getting somebody through to push past the fear of like, okay, you're afraid if you leave your job that you don't have enough money to leave your job. Okay, say you don't. Well, then what happens? And then what happens?
Yes.
And then what
Yes.
happens?
Yeah.
Right? And you realize like there are very few things in life you cannot recover from in some
Mhm.
way.
Worst case scenario, role play is really powerful. And I always say when people want to start their own business, I say before you even think about starting your own business, you need to go to the worst case scenario. What if you don't have clients for 2 months, 6 months, a year? What does that look like for you? And are you willing and able to handle that? Because the last thing you want to do is once you've set your intention is to second guess yourself constantly. And actually, one of the things I would say about intention setting, like once you've sat with yourself and you've touched your heart and you think about what is my intention, the next question is, what are the challenges to getting to my intention? What would it look like? And what happens when I start feeling like that? What do I do from there? And then I think the final thing you ask is, what does it feel like to achieve my intention? Like, what does it feel to live in my intention? Because I think it's really, there's no easy path. This is life. Life isn't easy. Um, and even writing this book, it's amazing how challenging writing this book is, right? I mean, some days I'm filled with self-doubt. Sometimes I feel so good about what I've written, and then I go back and read it the next day and say, oh God, this is terrible. And sometimes I go back and say, oh my God, this is so good. So it's like this roller coaster. That is life, right? But I'm living this intention and it is hard. But I know that accompaniment, because that is, as you talked about, Katie, is like I love having a yearly theme, and like just a word or a phrase. And this year is accompaniment, and that's hard work. It's hard to accompany, and it's hard to be accompanied. I don't like asking for help, right? Like that's hard. But I have gone through and thought about what's hard about it. And also, how does it feel when I'm accompanied and accompanying? And so I basically thought it through. That doesn't always get you through, right? Like you still have these ebbs and flows, but I think it is very important to think about those challenges and worst case scenario visualization, which I know some people would say, never go there. You should only be thinking about positive things. I don't believe that. I personally think it is very instructive to think about the worst case so that you can choose if that's something you're willing to go to. Or what are some how can I mitigate that risk?
Totally.
Wow. This is a masterclass. I mean, truly, this is because it's really interesting, Johanna, what you're saying in terms of like, okay, so there's this concept of intention that a lot of people, I think, understand the concept. But I think that at least for me, I can only speak for myself, like, the concept of an intention for me is like, okay, I'm sitting in a cross-legged position during my meditation. I'm just saying the word over and over. It's not about like, what will I do when that intention is challenged? Like, what you're describing is really a holistic like view of intention. It's like a very I don't want to say the word realistic, but it's something to that effect. And it's just interesting because like my intention being ease is actually not easy at all. I mean, it's like because the thing is that it includes boundaries. It includes saying no.
Yes.
It includes like, what some people, and I would bristle at this concept, but radical self-care. I would just say it's just taking care of myself. But like no one says radical self-care to me, but like I say it to myself and then that's just me like getting mad at myself about like nothing, like me saying something negative about myself. That's another thing. Like what if I had a conversation with someone this morning over coffee about like the way that I talk about myself or the way that we speak to ourselves, what if I could make that more easeful? And I asked her, I was like, sometimes do you ever have those moments where you like speak kind of negatively to yourself? And she's like, every word. Like, and she was like,
Yes.
and I was like, oh, I'm like, I am realizing that my body and my cells and my nervous system is listening to me. And I was like,
Yes.
I need to be careful. Like, it's like, I need to be careful about what I say because it's like, and it's like, yes, of course you can think things or whatever, but it's like, even that, I'm like, wait a minute, like the narratives that I have, like, so for example, I'm doing a new project for work right now and it's a big swing. I mean it's
Mhm.
something very something I've never done, and which also is a story because some of my friends are like, yes you have, like what the hell, it's not a big swing, it's like a teeny little kick, like it's like nothing, and then
Mm.
it's like all these things, but I'm like, instead of saying like, oh I don't know what I'm doing, I could say like, I know exactly what I'm doing, I'm going to be easeful in this moment, and like when those judgments come up, I'm going to embrace ease. And it's like, but it's also like intention setting is fucking hard because it's like it's not just one thing. This is not just one thing. It's not just like let's levitate on a mountain and like just be like la 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 la, everything is harmonious. No. Like if you're really serious about it, it's going to require work. And but I love what you said in terms of like imagine yourself actually doing the intention. Like if I actually imagine myself setting specific boundaries around work or whatever, like I'm basically levitating because I'm so happy that I just did it. So anyway, that's just I feel like I just went on a soapbox. Also, that is a narrative. I didn't go on a soapbox. I was just
No,
talking.
you didn't.
I'm just gonna
You
say nice
just
things about
talked.
myself. Anyway, go ahead,
Well,
Joanna.
can I just wanted to say something here about, well, one, th this is also very human, right? Being hard on ourselves. I think it's also very womany.
Yeah.
But I actually almost feel like there's something that may need to happen for you before ease, and that is faith in yourself.
Ooh.
Because when you were talking about your project, um, that somehow you need to have confidence or that you have done it before, there's almost something about, to me, about no matter what I encounter, I have faith that I can overcome it.
Damn.
Look at
Damn,
all the
damn.
things that I've overcome.
You're right.
And so there's a faith thing too. And actually, it's something that I'm seeing more and more in my coaching and myself, right? Is that active faith in ourselves, in that
Mhm.
active faith in the universe, in the active faith in everything is going to be okay. And so I actually think that when you have that faith, and it could be in a higher power too, right? I'm not just saying in ourselves, right? But like that ease comes from the faith that you will get through it, that you will figure it out, that you are resourceful.
Yes. I love that faith or trust or anything
Trust,
along
yeah,
those
trust would be
lines.
another way to put it. Yep.
Thank you for that. I feel like I'm
I'm
being
sorry. I
coached
just
and I
have
really
to.
appreciate that. This is
mean,
amazing.
I mean, and I feel like it's also what y'all are making me think about too is that like I feel like there's a way to look at, none of us are spring chickens. There's a way to look back at our lives and only focus on the things that we did wrong. Like I'm gonna fuck this up because whatever. But like also there are tons of successes in our lives.
Yes.
Yes.
That's what it's making me think of, right? Like,
Well, I think that there's a misnomer in
mm,
the idea of radical honesty with ourselves is somehow just about improvements. And
mm,
I think about this a lot that part of being radically honest with ourselves is giving us credit. And that comes from space also, being able to give ourselves space and to reflect on the things that we've done. We often move to the next thing, one thing after the next, after the next. We never give ourselves a chance to recover and reflect. And of course, there are ways to improve things, right? But there's also a million things we do right every single day.
Hmm.
And we almost never give ourselves. But that's what honesty is. Honesty is being honest about the good things too. There's nothing wrong with giving ourselves some credit. I say this as someone who struggles with that myself.
well, I again, womany, like we're not encouraged to be like, no, I killed that. I'm amazing. What are you talking about? Johanna, I don't know where this time went. I'm so annoyed at the clock right now. I
Same.
feel like we should have booked 3 hours with you. Where can people find you? How can they sign up to be a reader on the book? If they want to
God,
book
that is a
coaching with
very good question. I don't know yet. But okay, so I'm at my website is just beach strategies, like the beach tree, as I mentioned, the mother of the woods, which is the tree, the beach tree is the mother of the woods. BEECH strategies.com. And I promise I'll update something. I don't know how, but I'll do something to update if and when I get my book published. Even if I have to self-publish it, I'll publish it at some point.
That's so exciting.
I mean, you'll be back to talk about it. What are you talking about? What?
Yeah,
Yeah, or I'll be
exactly.
back to talk about it. Exactly.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. It's been so wonderful to see you, Joanna. Thank you for your time. And we hope everyone got as much as we did out of this conversation. And we will see you next week.